Welcome everyone for our two-part meeting. We're going to do a very, very brief discussion on possible items for the upcoming budget. Rodney and his staff have prepared some. I emailed you a list. Again, it's just throwing it out there. May not make it to the next meeting. Still looking at prices. And as you know, we're waiting for Mayor Wareheim to join us after his Zoom call with the Boy Scouts. So, Rodney, I'll let you take it away.
Hey, excuse me, may I first apologize for my darkened image. I moved my home office and the lighting is terrible, so I just look like the blue guy.
Steve, do you have anything you would like to add?
Sure. I think some of the things that I need the folks to think about is, definitely look at our fee structure and what our fees are and take a hard look at those. One of the other things, a very important item, is the water and sewer rates. As you recall, in the fiscal year 21, the budget that we're currently in, we did not increase water and sewer rates. So, I want to refer you back to your water and sewer rate study that was done by MSET a few years ago. So those are some of the things that we really have to take a hard look at. The number of new homes coming on, Michelle, I have to refer to you because we have to look at the fiscal year from July 1 to June 30th, July 1 of 21 to June 30th of 22. And will we have any new homes coming on in reference to equine meadows? So that means a lot, because if you look at your previous budgets, I think we've actually put in there 3 homes a year. So there's a possibility that we would pick up some homes from equine meadows. Do you agree or disagree on that?
Right now, I have no idea. They're having some stormwater management issues, and I've been getting a lot of emails from the planners who are reviewing down there. So I'm not really sure where they're going. When I contacted Rich DeMario for my meeting this month, he told me that they wouldn't be ready for like another 2 months to come back.
Okay.
So that would be final. But at the most, they could do in a year is 25 if they were ready. But
well, right now we're 16 months out to the end. So, I mean, looking at that period, that's something that we have to look at with the number of new homes coming on. So, but my main focus is the water and sewer rates, and please refer back to the MSET study on that. So, also, as Kelly said, you should have received some information from Rodney in regards to DPW. I know Chief Hess sent an email out in regards to the police budget. So those are some of the things that, to highlight the fiscal 22 budget. Any questions for Kelly or I, Chief or Rodney?
Was there an intent or desire to go through those lists this evening?
Kelly, it's up to you, but we can touch on those a little bit. I don't want to get really into the weeds right now. This is kind of first blush. Of course, we have to look at our operating budget very closely, but these are kind of some things that DPW come up with that they can see needs for.
The other thing too is we can go to each council person and ask them what they would like to see for their different, groups that they're with. If they have anything off the top of their head that they would like to at least get something on paper, and we can see what we can work with, maybe with pricing or what have you, and maybe they've been thought about along with what Parks wants or roads or what have you. So we can do that now if you want to start. Mrs. Howe, I'm looking right at you. You're the first one in line. So do you have anything you would like to see for the Nature Center? Have they brought anything up?
The only thing that the Nature Center, their priority would be a pay increase for the naturalist. She's done an excellent job. She's just incredible. So I'd like to give her some more money to keep her. So, and that's really all I have right now as a priority.
And we can work on that with the operating and so forth. If you give an idea of rate and maybe number of hours, we can look at that So I'll jot that down.
Okay. That's all I got.
Melinda, how about you?
I saw the email that Chief sent out, and they're not really asking for anything this year per se. If I read it correctly, right, it's going to be for next year with the cameras and stuff. So I think one thing we need to look at is, like we talked about for the last couple of years, is like the wastewater and, you know, our guys, because they are, as we talked before, their salaries are really, really low. I mean, really, I don't have anything else that I'm, you know, considering a priority at this point, except for taking care of, you know, the things we need to take care of because nobody knows what's going to happen this year. You know, we don't know what to expect, or to really ask for anything special, in my opinion, would be a little bit far fetched, because what if something major happens and we're in another, you know, we're in a bigger situation next year? That's just my opinion, but.
Great. Vince, how about you?
I share the same opinion as Melinda. Working on our wastewater utility guys, see what we can do to help them. I'm really leaning towards a very conservative approach this year, just for what Melinda said. So I just think we got to walk on eggs right now and just move slowly.
Dale, how about you?
No, you know, I represent Planning and Zoning Commission, and this year I don't have anything special that I feel I need to request. I didn't see anything at first glance on everything that Chief and Rodney sent. Everything seemed reasonable and good for discussion, but no, nothing new to add.
Jen, you're up.
Okay, I looked over the list that was sent from you and Steve earlier, as well as the email from Chief. I believe that was yesterday. Couple things I have just question-wise, not necessarily something that has to be brought up. I would like to make sure that we try to, if we can, try to replace some of that equipment in Christmas Tree Park. It's starting to show its age. I know there was something in there about, I believe it was pavilions 2, 3, and 4 doing some patchwork. It looks like we have some runoff issues up there. I know that Steve and Dave were talking about the one section. So I don't know if that's something that we're going to have to think about. Do we have to, is that going to be a big budget item type thing? Or is it something that we have the materials to replace? Like if we have to put in a retaining wall or something for one section, that would be an expense. We seem to keep having to take things out and we don't seem to be replacing them. So whether we look at, you know, a grant money or something for that to get some of that equipment put back in. I know we've done excellent stuff with the ADA sidewalks and those kind of things. But just make sure we're not ignoring that, because there are people that come from all over the county to enjoy that park, especially.
Great. And then we talked earlier today about making sure we did not do our War Memorial update. That
Yes.
was this November, because it's a ceremony and so forth. And we thought that maybe we should put that off and work on that for something that would happen next November for close to Veterans Day next year. So that'll be coming up. That's not in this list, but that will be something that we want to make sure we get that going.
Okay. And then it just following along with Melinda and Vincent and what's been said before, parroting or echoing on that, we have seemed to not be able to help our guys as much, our water and our wastewater and our parks and the maintenance kind of guys. One thing that I know that has been tossed around a little bit was the possibility of maybe looking at physicals, having the guys do physicals in the future, the employees do physicals. So something that we might want to think about, is that going to be something that we cover the cost? Would they go to a place? How would that work? As far as expenses, would we put that back on them if we're requiring it, that kind of thing? So I don't know if that's something that would be a major expense or anything, or how that would work with the benefits that we have for them.
Yeah, I believe if we would require it, we would have to cover that expense.
So, I mean, I have no idea. Would it be like we would pay their copay, or would they have to go to a special location or something? So just something to kind of think about.
If I could answer some of the questions, starting with Debbie in the Nature Center, we are looking into trying to control that water runoff a little bit better. So we're getting prices back from a general contractor. We're looking at that. Jen, to answer your question, we did put some monies in for Christmas Tree Park for the toy replacement at the playground. As you can see, it's $20,000. And also we did put in monies to do some asphalt around the drip edges of pavilions 2, 3, and 4 to try to eliminate that runoff issue. So we're looking at those.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Also coming back to the question about the physicals that I threw out there yesterday. Yes, if we would, and this was just something that I threw out for discussion, but yes, if we would require our employees to have physicals and we would mandate that, yes, we would have to pick up the tab for that. So, you know, to add to what Councilperson Smith had said, yes, it would be our responsibility to do that. So, but
Are mandated physicals common amongst other municipalities and towns?
can't answer that, Vince. I can't really answer that. I did not poll our other municipalities in the county or nearby. I just threw that out there, you know, just threw that out there for discussion. So can't answer that. I can only give you the information. I can only give you background when physicals come on the scene with the fire service, and there were some firefighters that it was a good thing they had a physical because they were treading on thin ice with some issues. So that helped out. I will tell you that. That's a brief history of the fire service. So it really helped. So, and the physicals aren't cheap for a full physical, full-blown physical. They're not cheap. So.
Steve, just a question that I happen to think of. For our guys that have their CDLs as a requirement of their position,
Yes.
they have to go every 2 years unless there's an issue. They would go every year. Because they have their CDL for their position, are we covering that now or are they covering it themselves?
No, we cover that. Yes.
Okay.
Having the CDL is part of their job, and we require them to have the CDL, and we pay for the physical. We pay for everything associated with that license.
Okay.
Kelly, if you sent them out already, and
Is it,
were you going to send out the budget worksheets for us to see again, and all the details? And if you sent that, my apologies, I must have missed that.
I did not send out the worksheet, the spreadsheet. I just forwarded what Rodney had put together for DPW.
Okay,
So-
good. So I was just afraid I missed it. So we'll eventually get that. But
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
good, perfect. I was just afraid I missed it. Thank you.
And actually, you know, as you're going along, you think, say Mrs. Howe or, you know, Jen or whoever, they're different committees, and they say, oh, you know what, I forgot to add this, or they talked about this. You know, now's the time to do it. Just because it's not asked for tonight does not mean it's not going to happen. And this, like Steve said, it's the first blush. You're just looking at it. You may never see some of these items again because, you know, someone in the staff might say, nope, not needed. We fixed that. Or how could we miss this? This is huge. What were we thinking? So, you know, so please feel free to email me. Ronnie, do you want to go over some of your highlights? Obviously not the smaller ticket items, but the larger ones.
Sure. So we'll start at the top. Let's see. Well, Mayor and Council, cybersecurity, 15,000 possibly in current 2021 budget. That was one of, I actually incorporated some of Steve's notes into my notes. So that was one of Steve's additions there. Is that where we are with that, Steve?
Why don't you just hit the highlight, the big ticket items going down the list?
Okay.
You don't have to go into each individual one, just the highlight.
Okay, well, okay, so maintenance, of course, we hire an inspection firm and we put aside $12,000 for an inspection firm to make sure we get what we're paying for. I met with our superintendent, road superintendent, and we came up with a tentative list of what needs a 2-inch mill and overlay. So I have a list there on that. And some roads just need patching. So again, we have a tentative list of patching there. And I need to come up with prices on that. I'll have that by the next meeting. Next is line striping in town, or line striping for the in-town roads. We used to hire Carroll County to do it, but they no longer do it for municipalities. They hardly have time to do it on their own stuff. So I got a price from an outside contractor, and it's about $13,000 to do our town roads. Concrete and rubble removal, we've accumulated a lot of rubble and concrete at our Christmas tree dump site. So we're getting a cost together to have that hauled out. Some shop equipment for the maintenance shop. A wire feed MIG welder would be a really good tool for them to do small welding jobs. And it's pretty basic to use. It's not hard to use. And actually you can use weld heavier metals with that as well. Drill press, they could use a drill press. Theirs is in need of replacement. The salt bin that they have down there by the maintenance shop, it's in need of a new skin, and the roof is getting in bad shape. And also the gates are getting rusted out from the salt. We're looking into pricing on that. Let's see, an air compressor for the lower building. That's where the guys do the maintenance on the equipment and the vehicles. Air compressor would be a good tool for that to help them run air tools and stuff like that. The 2003 international dump truck, the salt is really taking its toll on that truck. Components are starting to, fail. And we checked with an outside contractor or that does mechanical work, and now's a good time to get rid of it before we really start having problems with it. And while it's still worth a good bit for a trade-in, so we're looking into that also. We'll skip over the leaf blower. And the Gator windshield, we bought it a couple years ago without a windshield, so we'd like to get a windshield put on it. Truck tire.
I'd go over the items that are at least in the 5,000 or higher range.
Okay, I apologize.
That's okay.
Okay. Oh, okay. A trench box for emergency dig ups. This is for trenches 6 feet or deeper. OSHA requires a trench box to be put in to alleviate any cave-ins. Okay, moving down to parks, the tennis court fence replacement. Really, while we have a company in there, we ought to do the whole fence at $13,000. One side's really bad. If we choose to go lower, we can do the one side this fiscal year coming up. Steve touched on the Christmas tree park some. The toy replacement at the playground is $20,000. Of course, he talked about the asphalt drip edge. We're looking into the parking lot. It's getting in bad shape. We want to do another length of ADA sidewalks. We did some last year, and we put aside $20,000 for that. Moving down to stormwater management, we have a list of more storm drains that need to be repaired. And, I'm sorry, that's the stormwater pond contract. And it has a question mark for Whispering Valley. Our crew can do Whispering Valley, so we should be okay with what we budgeted last year on that. Okay, sewer budget request. I&I, which is inflow and infiltration investigation repairs. We had CCTV work and investigations last year, and this year we'd like to do the repairs of what they found, and that was $38,000 on that. Of course, our meter and MXU program continues. Adding MXUs, which is radio reads for reading our meters, and this would be split between water and sewer, and it's $40,000 total on that. Another thing for sewer, we're asking for a truck replacement of a 2009 F-250. That's all the big ticket items on that. They're moving down the water budget request, same thing, split the meter MXU program with sewer. Let's see. And in the water department, we're also requesting a truck replacement in the water department, the 2010 F250 to replace that one as well. Again, on these trucks, the salt is taking its toll on the trucks. We haven't replaced a truck since 2017. And that pretty much covers the big ticket items. Any questions on anything? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you're asking for an awful lot. You're asking for 3 truck replacements. So we, water and sewer should be, how much we charge should cover that. So we're obviously going to have to raise the rates, or you're going to have to cut some stuff out of this budget, because that's a lot. That's just my opinion.
Anybody else? We good? This is, again, as Steve stated, this is preliminary. This is a 30,000 foot view right now of what we're looking at, what we're going to request.
Yeah, I think in the past, and I don't disagree with Debbie's comments, but I think in the past what we've done is we kind of put everything into the budget as a placeholder and then kind of back up from there.
Mm-hmm.
And then at some point we may have to prioritize some of the items on the list, but we would know that as we go through the budget.
Put everything there and say, okay, well, this is out because we can't do this. This is out, and then just go down and try to appease everybody a little bit, but maybe not be able to give them everything they want.
Actually, I'm looking at something right now on page 1. Under public safety, of course, Chief and I had talked about a vehicle replacement and if the used vehicle could go to the administration, but that's cut out. And we looked into a larger and more up-to-date message board, and I estimated 15 to 19,000. Actually, Chief did some research. I received a call from a company, and we're up above the $19,000 mark. So that's automatically taken out. We're not going with that. I talked to Rodney today. We're going to take the existing message board that we have, refurbish that, and then you use that one. So that's what we're going to be doing with that. So for a couple $100 for paint and possibly new batteries and some wiring, we may be able to update that one for a few $100s and keep what we got. So those 2 items are gone. They're out of the picture on that. So the cybersecurity 15,000. I believe I got to check back. I have to look back in the 2021 budget. There was some, I think that might be a placeholder from the current budget we're in. So I have to do some checking on that and see if that is. And we looked into one company last year that was just the review of our cybersecurity. I believe Kel was over that threshold of $15,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that was just to look at our system. So anyway, those are some comments. So those things can be removed right out of the gate.
I think we also need to look at a raise for the police officers. We want to be able to retain the quality officers that we have without losing them to Carroll County or other agencies. So I think that needs to be looked at also as far as public safety goes.
Yes, I agree with that. Actually, when we're looking at that would more come under the operating end of the budget. We're kind of looking at the capital items right now. So that would, yes, that's discussion during operating. Yep. Just to add what Kelly had mentioned too, over the next week or so, if you think of something, a request that you would like, just give either Kelly or I a call, and we will do the research for you. And if you come up with an idea, please let us know, and we'll go from there. So.
Kelly, I think tonight was kind of a kickoff for our budget discussions. Was there anything else that you would like us to cover, or anything else that you would like us, on?
No, again, like Steve said, maybe go back over that rate study and look at that. Because like I said, we did not do that last year. Think about what you'd like to maybe see in the upcoming year. Look over the list Rodney gave, and we'll get more information out to you all. So not looking forward to it. I think that's it.
Okay. Hopefully, Ryan will be joining us sometime soon.
I just have one question, just to help staff out a little bit. How can I phrase this? So, would you like us to look at the budget in a way of not increasing water or wastewater rates using the current numbers we have, or kind of work the budget in, with a nominal increase, I guess is what I'm asking. And give it some thought. Give it some thought, and then respond back to me. Just don't, because we do, as Debbie said, I mean, there's some big ticket items in here, and we don't know what to expect over the next year. So, think about that and get back to Kelly and I, so we can formulate that. So.
Is there a way to figure it out? And I'm not trying to make you twice as much work, just on a guesstimate of saying without doing the increase, and then just overall, not exactly, but an approximate of if we did an increase, what difference it would make overall for us in our budget.
Yes.
Without too much trouble.
No, that's easy to do based on the amount of gallons that we pump per year. That would be no problem at all. And we can give you that information, doing a nominal increase.
Yeah.
Yes, that's
Just
no problem.
Idea, and then say, okay, and I'm making a number up in my head. Okay, it's a $300,000 difference. That might be worth doing that small amount to everybody, or no, it's really not because it's too much. At least it would give us an idea to work on.
For example, we know those numbers off the top of our head as far as a tax increase. So if you raise the taxes 1 penny, Kel, I believe that brings in how much?
About 50.
About 50, yeah.
Okay.
Something like
Give or
that.
take.
So what we can do is based on our water flows, we can work our way backwards and, give you nominal increases to tell you what it would be. That's no problem.
Yeah, just get some ideas. That's all.
Sure. That's no problem. So, Vice President Pacelli, I guess we're waiting on marijuana right now, correct?
Yes, we are. I think with the next thing up for discussion, we should just hang in there for a little bit.
Very good.
He said he should be around by 7, correct?
What he said.
That's correct.
Well, my suggestion is we just wait a little bit, and then we'll move forward if he doesn't show up in a timely fashion.
Okay, I'm gonna take a quick break real quick. I'll be right back.
So it has 5 different bedrooms in it. We had around 50 people there, space for plenty more.
I will say the other thing that I'm going to do is reach out to the Manchester Happenings group and see what they think they may need from the town as far as resources for some of their events that they can think about planning for the upcoming year. With COVID going on, I don't really know what they plan on doing, but I know we'll reach out to them. And I guess the sustainability group, again, we haven't met, so we will reach out to them. If you can think of any other groups that you think we should, we do plan on reaching out to the rec council. I know that's something we plan on doing, but we're all ears.
More text there.
Kelly, I did get an email from the business association. Vince, did you see that? Their new name,
Yeah.
Manchester, whatever.
Yeah, I'd have to
And-
double check it.
Yeah, they were talking, and I didn't get to get in on the meeting, but they were talking that they wanted to do the Christmas thing, and they wanted to do Halloween activities like in the past. So they're planning.
Tom will tell about that, but
Yep.
I'll keep my fingers crossed. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
We'll give it 5 more minutes and then we'll get started. So I have 7:05. We'll start at 7:10.
Sorry, guys. You guys able to hear me okay?
Yeah, you had 3 more minutes, Ryan.
I have 3 more minutes. I just got off. I apologize. As I told, I talked to a couple of you. I'd gotten a call and I was not in front of my computer from a Boy Scout pack. And this was prior to us even scheduling this. And I looked at my calendar. I was like, oh, yeah, just send me an appointment. And then I didn't write it down and I got it. Anyway, and then I had technical difficulties over there. I don't know what's different about whatever Zoom they sent me, but they couldn't hear me at all. So I spent the first 10 minutes trying to figure out why they couldn't hear me. Logging out, logging in. So here we are. Dale, you're really dark today.
Yeah, I issued my apology in front. I had moved my home office and the lighting in here is terrible. There's no light because I'm so close to a wall. There's no light in front of me. Everything is behind me. So I've got to come up with an adjustment here so I can get better lighting.
It's a really cool effect if you wanted to do like a horror movie or something.
Yeah.
I got one of these peripheral lights that kind of attaches to my laptop. Shines on my. It's annoying at first, but I think it does help people see you. Although all I see now is more of my face I didn't want to see. So, what is there anything that? I'm sorry to jump in and throw a monkey wrench into whatever conversation you guys were having. Is there anything that I need to get caught up on real quick? Or have you guys been talking budget?
Yeah, we were talking budget, went over some of the highlights.
Okay.
Yeah, rather to increase the water rates because water and sewer is asking for a big budget.
Yeah, my feeling on that, I talked to Kelly and Steve earlier this week, was that I mean, it's the end of January. We do have a little bit of time, but we probably at least need to consider getting back on the plan where we were. And I know we kind of called a timeout for a year, or how do things look if we don't? And you know, or do we call it a timeout for another year based on economic considerations, you know, for constituents, and then no, we're eating money for another year because we're not keeping up with what it actually costs. But I don't know that we have to come up with an answer to that tonight. But that's how I sort of see the considerations around whether we jump back into the 5-year plan or not. Excuse me. You guys may have different opinions, or I don't know if you guys discussed anything different from that.
We didn't go into any detail. We're all going to go off, give it some thought. And I think you're right. We have some time to think about that.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a it would be an unpopular decision. Is probably the best way to say it. But at the same time, you know, I still feel pretty strongly that we're somewhat obligated to match the fees as best we can, right? The fees that we collect from water and sewer to the expenses that we need to properly run the water and sewer system. And we were, I know, no matter what the number is, a lot of folks are going to feel like, well, it's too expensive. They won't really have maybe a number on what it should be. It's just too high. So I think it's on us to run the systems efficiently and with as few hiccups as possible. But at the same time, we do need to run those systems, and then that's going to cost money. So are we hiding some of that money from the fees by covering it with property taxes? Well, that's what we have been doing. That's, for right, wrong, or indifferent. So this was a 5-year strategy. I think we've talked about this before, to get us to the point where it's really a little better aligned in terms of matching what it costs to run the system with what we collect to run the system.
My issue, we shouldn't be using property taxes. We did this once before. That's why we had the survey done, because it was costing us what, $5-7 per unit, and it's, water and sewer's got to pay for itself.
Yeah,
Bottom line.
Let me clarify something. Water and sewer accounts are standalone accounts. No property tax money is used to support water and sewer. So they are two standalone accounts. So I just correct Kelly. I mean, nod your head. Yes, they're standalone accounts. So I just want to clarify that. Where we get into the problem is the operating cost of what it costs to treat 1,000 gallons and what we charge the residents for 1,000 gallons, and money's taken out of our unit charges to offset that. That's the big gap. So that's what we have to look at, and that's what the rate study showed. So,
yeah, Steve, I think you're correct. I was kind of oversimplifying it by basically saying if we're not collecting enough to cover the operations, we're getting it someplace, right? But we I think the grand scheme of things, weren't collecting enough through our rates and our fixed fees to cover what it was costing to do it.
You are correct, and the cost per 1,000 gallons is used to produce that water. The unit charges is used for capital expense items to keep the system running, replacing pipelines, replacing pumps, things like that. So you have to really focus in on that. And as the rate study showed, what it cost us to produce 1,000 gallons of water compared to what we're charging, there's a large gap there. So we have to think about that. So.
And it'll never directly align, but I think we should try to get it as aligned as possible.
As close as possible. That's
right. And in the fairest way possible between base fees and unit fees. Okay. So was there anything else? I don't need to drive everything on this meeting. Was there anything else budget that we need to discuss tonight that was in process when I jumped on?
No, Kelly opened up the floor to all the council members to see if they would like any certain projects, and we received some feedback. Also, she asked the council, we asked the council, to think about this for, a week or so and get back with us with any, ideas that they may have to see if we can work that into the budget. So.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, folks can certainly send things in, and this year, just sort of my overall comments, I generally put it in the email too, was it's going to be a strange year because there's a lot of unknowns going in with a lot of unknowns, but it probably makes sense to keep the process that's been successful for us the last couple of years of let's think of all the things that we would like to accomplish if money weren't an object, and then we can start to rank those between, we know we're going to pay for employees, and we know we're going to provide health insurance, and we know we're going to have gasoline. And so what are some things that we would like to do in that gray area between, can it be done now? Can it be done later? How much does it cost? And this year, as much as any year, I think we're going to have some unknowns in what our tax revenues are going to be. Town, county, highway users, really big question marks at this point. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that.
I know, Mr. Mayor, that there were comments from some council members in regards to looking at our police officer salaries and also our water and wastewater operator salaries. So that was one of the items that came up, which is a fair statement. Yes.
So, yeah, this is like generally. So I think are we safe to move into some discussion on the proposed Lippy annexation at this point, or does somebody have something that they'd like to talk about from a budget standpoint and kind of wrap that up, and then we'll, or are we good there, and then we'll wait for the emails to come in with priorities?
I don't think it would take too much time to bring you up to speed on our budget discussions at a later time.
Okay.
I would agree. We have, visitors and all as well. So I think that's a good idea.
Okay. I'm comfortable with that. I just didn't want to cut somebody off when I jumped in if you were in the middle of something and you wanted to get it out. That's all.
No, we were on a 10-minute break.
Oh, okay. Just enough time for a lollipop.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we talked about having this meeting with Lippy. I don't know that we have really a prepared agenda for this as much to have a discussion. My idea on this, there's a couple of things that I guess I'd like to know. And we brought up in the council meeting, I think I still have it here. We all got a copy of this letter, and the way I brought up in the meeting, the letter basically is making the assertion that this is a 7-home annexation in terms of net change, what we would see versus us keeping part of it county or us bringing the entire thing into the town. Again, I don't have a basis for saying if that's right or that's wrong. If we believe, and when I say we, I mean anybody on the council or staff, certainly the zoning administrator, that number is materially wrong, meaning, is it really 8 or 9 or is it 15 or 20? I don't know. And if it is, let's discuss that, discuss the considerations about why that's wrong. And then I think the second piece where I'd like to hear from everybody is, given if that number is, we're really talking about a delta of 7, 10, 12, I don't know what the number is. If we were to move forward, what are things that you would like to see as part of the discussion if we get to a table and say, hey, we'd like to discuss a public works agreement? Are those things doable? I believe, try to click around here, there's a few folks from Woodhaven on here, is that right? There's Marty Hackett, Jim, Mr. Hill's here. That might be it. Mostly the rest are us, I think. And so what are the things that you would like to see, and are those things doable, feasible, reasonable, all that kind of thing? So before we go forward with that, Mr. McCarron, is that I guess my toss out to the group here, does that violate any rules, or is that a fair way to start a discussion?
I think it's a fair way.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure I'm not doing something that I shouldn't be doing. So maybe I'll start with, unless somebody else has anything, to start with maybe Michelle. And Michelle, I'm sorry to put you on the spot here as a zoning administrator. Can you weigh in on the assertion that this is really a 7, and Dale or anybody else that has been at planning and zoning more than me, certainly more than me, on that number? Is that number right? Is it a little bit wrong, or do you just really disagree with what's in this letter.
No, I think if I'm interpreting it correctly, it's stated as being 7. Granted, it could be probably more than that if it stayed in the county, but I think it was his assumption that, okay, here's what I think I can get out of Old Town. Here's what I think I can get out of the parcel, the piece that is in town in the R15. And so to incorporate 7 more would give me approximately 40. So I think that's how he came up with a 7. Truthfully, you probably could put more than 7 on that lot if it stays out, but that's where I'm getting the 7. So I think in their defense, they were just trying to say that they can already build 23. So this will give them 7 more, even though they'll spread it out over all that land. Does that make sense? Does that clear it up?
I think so. And I'm sure that all of us encounter people in the community. I'm sure you guys all get contacted the same way that I do, that say, let me make sure I say this, I guess, in a fair way. Folks in the community look at it and say, oh, it's a cornfield. I like it being a cornfield. I don't want more homes because more homes means more traffic. And therefore, I'm against it. And I think with this group, I think what we're really down to deciding is it in the best interest of the town and all of us and the residents to have this all be inside town, or is it in the best interest of the town and its residents to not worry about the county portion and allow it to, whatever happens, and to just deal with the in-town portion? But one of the considerations is not to say, well, it's zoned a certain way and it meets the rules, but I would rather it be a cornfield, therefore we're not voting for it. That's just not one of the things. I think that's, at least in my mind, if it meets the rules and it's zoned a certain way and it's in town, then folks have rights. So again, that's kind of in my standpoint. So when I'm down personally, I want to have a discussion about whether or not it makes sense to have it all be in town, or to let the county portion happen as it would happen without our input or with very little input. Which scenario is better for the town? If we choose not to go forward, fine. Then let's make that decision with a clear head and with all the information we can. If we choose to go forward, fine. Let's make that decision with a clear head, the best information, and under the best scenario for the town. That's my standpoint. Mr. Hackett, can you, I guess, weigh in? I think you were probably in on producing this letter, I would assume, on what the zoning administrator said and kind of the basis for that 7, like that, an annexation of 7, I'll call it, and what would happen if we did or didn't, from your point of view.
Can everyone hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. The 7 lots, I mean, when I looked at the parcels that are in town already, the Old Town property, the part of the Old Town that we were going to utilize, along with the parcel that's already in town, one of the Old Town property was coming up with approximately 20 units on that property that we could get a nice layout on. And there's about 13 lots on the portion that was already in town on the Lippy property. Therefore, we're assuming, like we talked about, a maximum of 40 lots. And that's the discussion we've had with the Planning Commission over the past 5 years or so. So even in the county, if we don't get water and sewer because we're not annexed and we do well and septic, we can still do the 7 lots. It's just the road segment that's going to go in that portion will be county, that runs through that ties the Lippy farm that's in town to the Old Town portion where those lots would be. I think from a planning perspective, it makes complete sense for the thing to be annexed. When you look at it from a bird's eye view in the town, the corporate limits, it looks to be annexed. We prefer to deal with the Maryland State Highway Administration and the town of Manchester working through the entire process, not the town of Manchester for the town roads, the state highway for the state highway roads, and basically the counties, the access wherever it's located in the future, based on a traffic study and based on the state highway administration, we would end up dealing with the county in that case. So then we have a third entity, which then it's in the county's control of that access with the state highway versus the town. So we think from a planning perspective, it does make complete sense. We're talking about 40 lots, regardless of whether that parcel stays in the county or comes into the town, total for the 3 parcels. Although, so the Lippy Farm, we look at the portion coming due as acreage coming into the town and looking at doing a land plan that consists of the 3 properties together to make a nice plan, because there's some nice, there are open grounds and we know they're cornfields, but we can provide a lot of open space. We can preserve a lot of the natural and environmental areas down close to Maryland Route 30 and that area through there. Did that answer your question, Mayor?
You're muted.
I was trying to keep my coughing off the feed here. Not that I'm sick, I just always cough. Yeah, it makes sense to me. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to weigh in and then allow others to ask questions. Every time I think I understand everything about this potential project, I find out that I don't. So,
Ryan, I'd like to ask a clarification. If in fact this parcel stays out of town, Marty Hackett, how many lots could actually be on it? Because there are off conveyances, you'd get 7 on the last parcel, and how many on the other? Then how many?
On the part that is, we're thinking you're probably looking at total. It could probably be with the off conveyances and all that, it may end up being around 10 to 13.
So that would be 10 to 13 additional residences using town roads and access and more traffic.
And not paying town taxes.
Right. In addition to the 27 lots that are going to be built in town.
Yeah, and that number is actually the lots that could be built in town, Michelle, is going to be about 33 is what I'm coming up with.
Or 33. I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. I wrote it down and read it wrong.
No, it's okay.
So I just wanted everybody to understand that difference of here's what happens if it goes in town. And yeah, we do get the additional traffic and things that'll be built, but there'll be more than that if it's built out of town and no benefit to us. So those are just some things to think about.
So are we saying, and this is, I hadn't thought about it this way before. I always thought it was more homes if it was all in town. Are we saying now that if it was annexed, essentially the deal is now, and I know nothing's, there's no, this isn't an official negotiation, is that it's capped at 40. If we leave a portion out, we might have 33 in town and 10 to 13
out of town.
So 3 to 6 more in aggregate on that piece of property if a portion of it is left out of town. Is that what we're saying?
That's correct.
That's right.
Maybe I misunderstood something I've heard in the past. I thought by being in the county, they have to have one septic, that the property would have to be bigger. The lots would have to be much larger.
Mr. Walter, they're going to be about 1 acre in size. If it's in the county, you go with 1 acre in size. There's no open space requirements. So basically the remaining lands can be done, perhaps whatever else is allowed as a conditional use in the county zoning district, i.e. Retirement community, that kind of thing. I mean, there's options there if it stays in the county, but most of those options you're going to have to provide water and sewer, so you're limited unless we can design a special septic system for another type of use. We've always, the whole team has always committed, Mr. Hill, about doing a plan with 40 lots. So, and that's, so if it goes into town, that's what's been proposed all along with the Planning Commission. And we obviously prefer just to annex, work with the Planning Commission through the process. There's a letter that they sent to the town council asking for some conditions to put on there. If that's something that the town would deem appropriate, we could go through the conditions. Most of the time, almost every one of those conditions, believe it or not, are something you have to address through the site development process anyway, through the adequate public facility section of your ordinance. So when you read into your ordinance, it states that, if a adequacy is insufficient or inadequate at a facility, then the town has the right to approve, disapprove, approve with conditions, and so on. So it's one of those things where most of those items are something that we know we have to deal with anyway. So.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I jump in and ask Mr. Hackett a question?
Oh, absolutely. Please do.
This was one thing that was on my mind, and I think everyone, including myself, is getting hung up on this. I'm a simple kind of guy. I'm looking at a 3 pieces of property, and you're saying that if we build in the county, we get this many homes. If we build in the town, we get this many homes. Is it possible in this day and age, and with the technology you have, Marty Hackett, why can't you show us in concept where an idea as far as houses, if it was annexed into the town, and a concept view if it was in the county, if it remained in the county? And I think that's where we're getting hung up on, at least I am, because I'm looking at 3 pieces of property. I'm looking at a map, and I'm looking at cornfields, and I can't visualize what you're saying. And I need to narrow this down. We keep going back and forth. Well, it could be 40 homes, it could be 38 homes, it could be 35 homes. We got a moving target here. So is that possible to do to help me and help the group out, I guess is what I'm asking.
I don't see any problem with that. We've done several layouts. Actually, we've done many layouts over the years, and we've met with the commission and so on. Let me just say, this annexation is right now the piece that's in the county. We've obviously requested R20 zoning from R10, which is actually a down zone. If the property got annexed the way it was R10,000 and Mr. Hill didn't commit to the 40 lot max that he's talked about since day one, this property, all the properties associated with it, the project could be a good bit larger than what we're proposing right now. And that's why we're saying all we're doing is we're trying to create nicer lots. Some of these, the lots and the layouts that we have, Steve, which I can get you one with a layout with the county and the town separate. I can get you one with as it's going into the town. And then what we would also look at is the layouts that we've done that we've preferred, took the 40 lots and basically put them into one general location and preserved a lot of open space and environmental areas. So yes, and Mr. Hill, I know you're here, Marty. I can get that information emailed to Michelle and she can distribute it accordingly.
Yes, I think that would be great. I think the council would appreciate that, also. So yes.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Mr. Hackett, I have one other question for you. Yeah, I heard you mention R20,000, and then I heard you mention a really nice usable open space. Could that be done without clustering?
Yeah, I think you'll find that the layout that we had, most of the lots were in the 1/3 to 1/2 acre area. They were a little smaller than a 1/2 acre, and some of them were larger than a 1/2 acre, but averaging about that R20 is the layouts that we have. But again, the open space is generated by not just the reduction of lot size or anything like that, like a normal cluster. It's generated by us not trying to achieve the maximum density of an R10,000 zone, if you will. Again, the R10,000 zone could on the piece of the Lippy farm that's being annexed, we're actually requested the R20 because we didn't need the R10, which showed I call it a down zone. It's not an up zone. It's a less intense zone. But because we're looking at the property and the project as these 40 lots, the zoning was a little bit of it didn't really matter. We weren't maximizing an R20 zone or an R10 zone. We were limiting it to the 40 lots total, trying to make them as nice as possible. There's actually a couple of layouts that we've done where some of the lots are pushing 3/4 of an acre to an acre.
Okay. What I was getting at for anybody who might be watching us on cable, we could have a scenario where it's zoned for R20,000, which are half-acre lots. We cluster that. Now that house goes on a 1/4 acre, and the other 1/4 acre is given back to the town as open space. That's just one scenario. So if there's anybody outside, listening or watching on cable, just so you understand where my question was headed.
Yeah, we actually the one layout, I'm my apologies, you guys don't have it, and I'll get it to you guys. But we put the larger lots up against some of the existing adjacent properties, the larger lots, because they're more compatible with like what's along Charmel Drive and all that, because they're still well and septic, and they're about an acre in size, that kind of thing. Some of them are a little smaller, but that type.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
May I ask a couple quick questions? The first question is, and just refresh my memory, I know you've told me this, but how many acres is it total?
The parcel that we're annexing, 24, 25.
Okay, but what's the total amount?
That is the total amount that's being annexed.
That's annexed. I'm talking about the whole project.
And I don't know that number off the top of my head. It's
okay.
9. The part that's on the Lippy farm is about 9 acres.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what the Old Town subdivision that's recorded today, what that total acreage is. My apologies.
Okay. That's okay. That was one of my questions. I didn't know if I missed it or that type of thing.
Yeah, it'd be only a guess, but it's probably 20, 24 acres or so. It would be only a guess.
Okay, that's okay. I was just asking that. And then do you know, just because I've had this question from some homeowners that are on Charmel, an approximation, and I'm not asking for exact, but a range of what the houses are going to cost when built?
That I would have to defer to Mr. Hill.
Okay.
Obviously, the value is in a market like today is higher than what it was back in 2010 and 11, only because the market's going well. But he's got a better understanding of what they're selling for, what they sold at the end of Halley Hill Section 2, which was obviously a few years ago, which they're higher now than they were then.
Mm-hmm. And then my last question, and then I'll let somebody else speak. But my last question is, Mr. Webb had stated before that there was 6 or 7 houses that the town or county or had promised that we could put in. Can you kind of give me the information? I guess I think I might have misunderstood that. I hope I did, but on how that's working or who authorized that?
I can. When the Hill family donated the school grounds for Manchester Valley High School, the county agreed that all the off-conveyance rights could be located on the remaining portion of the Lippy farm, which is the subject property that's being annexed.
Mm-hmm.
And there's 6 off-conveyance rights that we have, that there's letters from the county on. So that those off-conveyance could process today. And basically the off-conveyance process, you don't go through the subdivision. It bypasses the subdivision process.
Okay. And there's 6 or 7 of them. Is that correct?
There are 6 of them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
If I could speak to that also, this is Marty Hill. that would mean that we would have a total of 12 off conveyances, because there are, correct me if I'm wrong, Marty, but are there off conveyances for the piece that we're annexing also? Or am I getting screwed up on that?
I thought there were 6 total, but you'd have some subdivision potential afterwards, is what I thought.
Yeah, if you do off conveyances, then you can split this. We're not interested in that. We have no interest in doing that. And I was out of my mind that we had even received that from the county when we donated that land. It was just, I think, a plum they threw in, but we've never had any idea of developing anything other than through the subdivision process in the town of Manchester, with the expectation, and as I stated in the last letter that I sent, we were always thinking that if we went through the process, followed all the requirements and the guidelines, this would be a normal subdivision and go through the review process. How we got to being so controversial, I don't know, but we're here to work through it and reach a consensus that everybody walks away feeling they've accomplished what they need.
Okay, Mr. Hill, while we have you, do you have an idea what the houses are going to approximately sell for?
Okay, we've been approached by at least 3 different builders, and basing this on what the lots would sell for and the prices that they're getting for comparable house lot combinations, it would have to be in the high 3s as a opening price. And I would venture to say that, it could go well into the 4s once people start adding things into the house.
Okay. So basically it's going to be comparable with Manchester Farms pretty much then, probably.
Yeah, that's probably a good statement.
Okay. Thank you.
And Melinda, I'm just saying that is probably a better way to try to convey that to people that we talk to in the community, right? Because who knows, when the market could change by the time they get through this process, either annexed or not annexed. And I don't think Woodhaven does building anymore. I think they just do land development, as far as I know. But so whether it's Ryan Homes or whoever built or whoever it is, right? That what type of home are they developing these to be? I would guess it's probably something like Hallie Hill or Manchester Farms, but I don't know if maybe one of the guys there could confirm that.
Yeah, I think you're right on, Ryan. I mean, that's what this area is. I mean, this is an area where people build traditional homes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're Bob Ward in Manchester Farms.
That's right, Bob Ward.
Right.
Yeah, and Bob Ward has reached out to us on this property several years back, and we have a working relationship with them, know the folks well, and when we're looking at marketing it, we get calls regularly from Ryan Homes because we sell a lot of lots to Ryan Homes. Hallie Hill was Ryan Homes. Right now we're selling lots in South Hanover to Ryan Homes. We're selling lots to Burkentine. So they're all in that same, I think, comparable type of and price of home.
So probably, and Melinda, I think, obviously the concern that would be coming from somebody in the communities like where we live is, are they putting in, say this the right way, housing that would drive down the value of our properties and our homes because they're going to put in like low priced housing? And I think the answer from what I'm hearing is, and I would assume the value in those lots is probably putting things in like we all live in, like we live in here. It's just kind of the area that it is. So.
Right. No, I understand. I just had several people ask me because you figure Manchester Farms right now are going anywhere from 430 to about 480 is the last one just sold for. So people there, they're concerned that they're going to build houses that are $300,000 and they don't want that, so I'm just kind of asking. I know Manchester Farms started at the mid threes, I think is what they said. And when you're all said and done, you're at 430 or 440. So, but that's what people are asking. They just what you said, they want to make sure that the prices aren't driving down. They want to be driven up.
The cost of developing a lot today, it's hard to build anything that you could put low cost housing on.
Yeah. And I think the way this business works, I'm not an expert in this business, but a company like Woodhaven is developing these lots, working with like Mr. Hackett at CLSI, and then they're selling developed or buildable lots to a builder at this point. And then those builders are going to build and sell a house for as much as they can get for it on that lot. I think as long as we're driving towards, this is a valid point, we're driving towards developing that area under whatever scenario, whether it's in the town or hopefully if it was in the county, though we wouldn't have any say, towards the kinds of housing that you see here in Manchester. Well, those homes are going to sell for what the market will bear at that point. And if the market is wherever here where you and I live is 430 to 480 or whatever it is, it would make 0 sense for, let's just say, Ryan Homes to buy these lots from Woodhaven and then sell them at a cut rate. They're going to sell them for what they can get for them. So I think the grand scheme of things, whether or not this is in town or out of town, this development is very unlikely to hurt home values in Manchester. But I do understand that from a homeowner standpoint. Anybody else have any questions for? I know that Dale has spoken, Melinda spoke.
I just have a comment.
Okay.
One way or another, homes are going to be built on this property. So the question that comes to my mind is, do we want to have control of it or not? And in this day and age, when we not constantly, but we will on occasion complain about county government, state government, here's an opportunity where we can control our own destiny, so to speak. One way or another, homes are going to be built there. Do we want to have some say in it or do we not?
It's a valid comment. Thank you. I think I said it during the council meeting, but I'm just going to lay out where my opinion is on this. And you guys have a vote, and I do not have a vote. The thing that I would like to see in all of this, and sort of my number one, is somehow, and I don't have the answer on how, somehow making that intersection better. Wherever these homes come out on 30, and that road that's across Maple Grove's going into the high school, I don't like Beaver Street's already a problem, and I don't like the idea of something coming out up near the church and creating another zigzag where people are jumping out into 30 and then making. If we can fix that intersection somehow, some way, that's sort of I would like to see that as part of this overall project. To Vince's point, I like the idea of having some level of control. I'm a little bit bothered by if we create an enclave and then we have folks that are essentially ours, meaning Manchester's, right? And anyone driving by or anyone that lives in Manchester Farms that isn't plugged into the meetings or isn't doing things like we're doing, they would know no different if that's a town resident or a county resident, but they're essentially receiving all of the benefits of being a town resident without pitching in to the group pot, right? For police coverage and roads, and I mean, how do we even handle road paving at that point? And we're trash, and are we going to pull up the plow when we hit the county portion when we're plowing streets? Or do we just there's a lot of questions where I think it just makes sense for this to be one project. but it also has to make sense for the town. So I'm not advocating necessarily for it. I just see value in it being one project as opposed to a couple smaller projects. Now, one of the things I would like to get out of this tonight is everyone's concerns are valid. If you have concerns about adequate facilities, I think Mr. Hackett did address that earlier and say that, you know, we have an ordinance. I think it's number 138. Dale and I were around when we wrote that. And you have to address those things along the way anyway. That's part of the development process. So, well, I think those concerns are valid. That's part of the process in saying you have to meet X standards to get there. But, you know, if that's a concern, that's great. Put it out there. If there's other things that you would like to see, right? If it's something, I hate to keep throwing Dale into the bus, but we've been around the longest at this point. We used to talk about usable open space, right? So is it usable open space, or is it the side of a cliff, or is it, you know, underneath a bridge or something? You know, if that's something you would like to see, then, you know, let's throw that out there and then see if it's not something that we can't work in as part of the discussion. So open to anyone else's thoughts, and with that, I'll be quiet.
I think those are very good points, and I think that's where our biggest challenge is going to be. If it's decided that we're going to go forward with approving an annex with, we've been calling conditions, they'll eventually result in agreements. We have a lot of information in front of us. Steve provided us with some excellent information. Planning and zoning provided us with a lot of good information. There's a lot of information. So taking all that information and putting that into a form that will be appropriate for an annexation agreement. My gosh, it's blowing my mind reading through all this stuff. And you look at it, you say, well, this is good, this is good, this is good. How are we going to turn that into annexation agreement language? So that's going to be a big challenge for us.
Dale, if I could just speak to that.
Certainly.
90% of what I read in the recommendations from the Planning Commission that should be included in the annexation are addressed going through the development process. I mean, when you submit a concept plan and you have a situation like exists here with adjacent properties on Charmel Drive that are still on water and well and septic, it's just common sense that the Planning Commission is going to request that we extend a manhole over to a low point so that in the future, when those septics start to fail and the health department says they have to connect to water and sewer, you've got it there and you don't have to figure out how to get the sewer over to the sewer system. You know from your years on the Planning Commission that that's something that you wouldn't let go when a plan was coming through if that circumstance existed. And I do have it in front of me. Let me look here. The sizing of the water and sewer lines, they're always well over minimum capacity. Marty Hackett and Jim and I were talking this afternoon. I don't know in an interior system in a development where we've ever put in a sewer main smaller than 8 inches. And if every unit in that development had to go through that sign, it would still have excess capacity of probably another 1,000 homes. So I think everything that you see here in recommended requirements is addressed in the development review process. We have to deal, we do have to deal with state highway. We can't deal with state highway in a vacuum. That's something that is going to be a joint process where the town is going to be right in the front expressing how they'd like to see this addressed. We're going to be right there working with the town, and we're going to have hurdles. I mean, just like in the proposed street in the last plan that we presented to you all, and it's in the packet that we recently provided, we needed to plan for an environmental crossing a stream. Hey, we understand that. So we went out, we went to MDE, we went to wherever is required, and we worked, and the town was involved in obtaining the permitting to be able to do that. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, in every development that we've ever done, you have to work through the specifics of that development. And annexation, let's say with no conditions, doesn't write any blank checks for the developer. It just allows the developer to get to the point where they can negotiate for an approval. And you have, as all municipalities, you have 90% of this stuff in standards and regulations that make it pretty clear. We don't have freedom to just go out and do whatever we want. And when we run into those things where there is a special issue or something in particular to that property, you work through that in the development review process. I mean, I've sat in on enough of my own and other meetings that have come before the Manchester Planning Commission to know that body is pretty knowledgeable and they're pretty comprehensive in their review process. I'm done for now.
Well, thank you. I do appreciate that. And I think what you brought forward was some may not realize that a lot of these decisions will go back to planning and zoning at some point. All I'm bringing up maybe now is that we have 4 pages of information, and I've got to go through just to really understand what decisions will planning and zoning get to make again later, and what kind of things do we need to cover in some agreement now, because obviously we have annexation agreements for a reason. So, but I'm glad you clarified that, because some may not realize that.
I thought, I'm sorry, was somebody else have something?
Yeah, I wanted to just add to that.
Okay.
Mr. Hill is correct in that we do have, some of these are just regulations and rules that we do review plans by. But if there is something special that you don't want to occur with this property, or you do want to occur with this property, that would go in this agreement, because who knows when it is developed, if we even have the same planning commission we have now, and we might have some that are just learning, but as long as it's attached to that property. And for instance, it would be like if we said, yeah, we do want you to run sewer line to any contingent properties that are on well, then that needs to be kind of said in this agreement, because that's not something we are guaranteed that the planning commission will decide.
And I understand that, but just what's on this letter on that particular subject. My first question there is, what do you really mean? What's all this mean? If it means what I just mentioned when I was explaining to the group, yes, we recognize and expect that the town is going to want a point to connect that is adjacent to that whole row of properties. Now, if the planning commission or the annexation agreement says we want to go in there, we want to run a main and run a sewer line to every one of those houses, then I think that's excessive. But providing for that connection if and when, probably more like when it occurs, that's just common sense. And I don't think any planning commission would ever let the property be developed without that. And I wouldn't expect that they would. Recognizing too that that property is not in the town, that people will fight hooking up. But if we put that manhole down there in the lowest point, it'll be there when that day finally comes.
Okay. Well, just to let the council know, in the past few developments that we have had, when Manchester Farms 4 was developed, they were required to run a sewer main. They had to run it back there anyway to get back to their section, and we made them put extensions for each home. When they ran section 7, which also back to Charmel, they put in an offsite sewer line with connections. They don't run them to the houses, of course, but they have the taps there that they can connect themselves. So this is something that we've been trying to do to get our infrastructure to some of these houses that are on sewer that we need to plan for. So Steve, am I correct in that, or did I miss anything?
No, you're correct in that, but we have to watch ourselves too. Once we open the gate up to the other homes that are existing, then our sewer numbers go up. So it's a double-edged sword right there. So we have to really watch ourselves a little bit. Now, when we did it, for Manchester Farm Section 7, I agree in the other section, but when we're limited on our sewer, and that's one of the issues, and also within this, we have to remember we have 2 existing homes that sit in that general area, and that is the Hale property, and also I can't think of the other person's name back there. Oh my gosh, I can't think of it. Joel Smith. That is correct. So we have to think about those homes, supplying them water and sewer. So those are the things we have to keep in mind along the way.
That's one of the questions I have from some of the people that are on Charmel. They say that, they're having issues. What if they want the water? And they're saying, you're going to build all these new houses and give them water and sewage, and we're still sitting here on a well?
Well, let me go back. The folks on Charmel all have town water. Okay. Mm-hmm. They have private septics.
Right.
So, yes. So that's, I want to clarify that.
Yes.
But
maybe I said it incorrectly, but yes, that's what they're,
but as their septics fail, which we've had that in the past, we want to give them an avenue to tie in if any way possible.
Right.
But again, when I say any way possible, that makes our sewer flows go up. So there's something, that we could do to work with the developer to fix some of our I&I and so on and so forth. So, we have to look into that. While I'm talking about this, I sent it out to the mayor and council. While I was doing some other research, there's a potential well site on this property. I did not think it was on this property, but it actually is on this property. And it's been verified by the county. So possibly would the developer help us, to do some test drilling down there to look at a potential well site for the town. Those are some of the things that we, we may want to look at along the way. So
that's something we've done before.
Yes, that is correct. Like Dale said, there's a lot of issues. I mean, with the additional wastewater flow coming in from this development, would the developer be willing to look at assisting us with our I&I issue to make up the difference in the flow? Even though, and Mr. Hill, I agree with you, the pipes are sized larger, and that's all well and good. But we have to look at the end game at the treatment plant and what effect is it going to have at the treatment plant. Sure, we can get the wastewater to the plant, but to make sure the wastewater is treated efficiently, that's what we have to look at. So there's a lot of things you got to consider along the way,
Yeah, my comment about the sizing of the pipes was just in response to the comment in this letter from planning and zoning.
That's correct. The 20%. I got it. Yep, that's correct. The open space. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, when I visited the site a couple weeks ago, there's a pond on that site. So could that pond be incorporated into an open space area, or was the pond going to be discontinued and used as a stormwater management facility? I don't know that, but those are some of the things that we have to think about. And
I think in the plans we've submitted, and Marty Hackett can speak to this, we have that pond included in open space.
so,
That's correct.
so there's some things, could we make a nice picnic area out of that area? Could we have a pavilion in that area? Could we have, so there's a lot of things, but yeah, a lot of things to think about. Yeah.
This may be as much a question for Steve as for the Woodhaven group, but it is, we're talking about Charmel Drive, and I know that those folks have water. Some are not in our sewer system. Is it possible, I think Mr. Hill brought this up along the way, that at some point, whether it's our local health department or MDE comes along and says, hey, due to XYZ, you have to, these guys are in your community, you need to hook them up because we're no longer going to allow these kind of septics. And the long-term thought process on that, now take away discussion about capacity, which we do have to keep an eye on, and at some point, either us, meaning this group of people, or some other group responsible for Manchester at some point in time is going to have to handle that, and that capacity issue at the sewage treatment plant. If some of this were to be developed in the county, could the same thing then happen there? So if we're talking about 40 in versus possibly 10 or 13 of those being out, could we be looking at, let's just say it's 20 years down the road, I'm making that number up, somebody coming in saying these 13 that are out, they need to be put into the sewer system anyway?
It absolutely could.
Is that a realistic consideration?
That it absolutely could happen, Ryan. And I'll tell you, what happens is obviously if we do a well and septic and we do a perk test, the nice thing is it's a modern perk test, and you hope that since the perk test is modern, that the system would last a little longer than some of your older systems. But if something would start to fail, then these houses, what will be different about this is the sewer line and the water line most likely will traverse the property right in front of the houses, but they won't be hooked up to public water and sewer. They're going to go, it's going to go from the Lippy property that's in town through the county portion to the old town property and down toward the pump station. So it'll actually go through the county portion, but if they're in the county, they won't be hooked up. They'll have private well and septic, but the water and sewer will be right in front of their houses.
But Ryan, can I cut in here? I believe that's what Steve's trying to get to. The point on the 200 houses. Right now, we've got 200 plus houses in our town that can fall into that situation. I'm in that situation. I have a septic in my yard. I knew when I purchased my house. I have town water. I knew I had a septic. I questioned Steve and I believe Donnie Knott at the time. I asked some questions. Even though the main runs past my house, it is my responsibility as the homeowner to tie in. The ballpark they gave me was $40,000 to $50,000 to tie my home into the main that is there. It is not the town's responsibility to do it. The fee comes on me. I go back to that number, that 200 houses. I know this is worst case scenario, but if something happens and all of them fail, or 15 of them fail this year, and 5 years down the road, 20 of them fail because they're all built around the same time, that's putting our capacity at the treatment plant closer to that 80% number. That's getting us close to that MDE penalty fine area. That's where I have a lot of hesitation, not overtly just this particular project. It's all the annexations. We have to make sure that we can support those 200 houses should that happen.
I hear you, and I agree with you. And again, I know I use this phrase a lot. I'm playing devil's advocate here. So what I'm hearing, though, is that if we annexed, we're knowingly adding 7. if we don't annex and it goes into the county, we're putting 10 to 13 more homes into that 200 bucket because they're county that then could be compelled to have to join the sewer system at some point in the future. So it's adding to that 200 number. Like, I don't know that there's an option where nothing happens, where we just don't do anything and then that number doesn't go up.
Yes, in the future, and it could be 40, 50 years down the road that it could happen. We could have those houses, some of those houses could hit that number before. So it would balance, it would come back around. We've got some time on those. With the capacities that we're at, we've been close before. That's a fear for me.
Okay. I understand. I guess I'm learning as we're going here too. So I almost see this as, and Steve Miller brought this up earlier. And I don't know if this is what makes good sense as a next step. I know that Mr. Hackett or Steve had talked to Marty Hackett and said, hey, could you send over 2 concepts? And we know they're concepts. They haven't gone through the review process. We haven't looked at, and that way we could really get that. We're talking about a lot of what ifs now, but we could really look at an A and a B. Here's the 2 options. Not final, right? Nothing's ready to be approved, but in that way we could actually, I think, have maybe a better discussion between here's what it would look like if we do nothing and it just kind of goes down this path, and here's what it looks like if we were to annex this in and have control and knowingly taking on a couple different risks, but that way we can put them side by side and then have a better discussion.
Can I ask another clarifying question too? I don't disagree
Absolutely.
with what you're saying.
Please do.
A lot of the recommendations, a lot of the paperwork, and there's a lot of information to have to sort through and a lot to wrap your head around. This may be better directed at probably Marty Hackett. I know that the conversation has come up this evening. It's come up previously that it would be fantastic if we could get the road connected in with the light at Maple Grove because of traffic and that kind of thing. Reading the different information, it looks like that may not actually be a possibility because of marshlands, because of, I believe there's a common use driveway on a deed somewhere, that it would get real close to our, I don't remember the right word for the building, our treatment facility, the dentist office. There's a lot right in that section. Is it feasible if that would be one of the requirements or conditions or things that we would put in, or is that absolutely not at all possible?
I'm not saying it's not possible. There's just a lot of studying that's going to have to take place. We have to do obviously a defined traffic study. We got to meet with the State Highway Administration and so on, and obviously the town and or the county, whoever, all the entities involved. So, you know, there's a lot of environmental areas down there that's going to be difficult for permitting. There's also there is a use in common driveway or a driveway that Mr. Smith owns, and there's some legal possible issues there. And of course, obviously, the pump station's located right there, and then the dentist office. So there's a lot going on down there. The master plan shows the street coming out further north. And we've talked to the planning commission about that. And that's the type of stuff that until we know what direction we're going as far as what entity or, you know, governmental entity we're going to be working with is and again, this is just the beginning of a process. This annexation is not committing any development or anything. There's nothing going on except Mr. Hill will now get a tax bill for that property for the town until such time he can develop it. So, you know, once we get that and all this stuff starts happening and working with, and at that point in time, we're obviously working with the planning commission, they're going to be involved. They're the entity that the governing body that's going to ultimately approve or deny or approve with conditions, whatever, the project as we're going through the process. And they get several bites at that opportunity, and that's just the approving. That's not meaning we don't have workshops with them to try to get that, but something that everybody's satisfied with. Like I said, there's a lot going on there, and there's a ton of engineering that has to be done. Did I answer your question, ma'am?
Yes, it does. Sorry, I stay muted because I have two little ones in the background.
I mean, kind of, I guess, Marty, what I heard out of that, like, I haven't been shy about saying that's my number one consideration. I know it's tough. I know there's challenges over there, and it'd be tough for you to commit to it at this point, being able to do it. But that's the one big benefit I see. I know there's things on the other side that if we do go forward with this and it gets developed as one property, that's the one big thing I see as a real benefit to the community going forward, into perpetuity almost, as if we could really fix that intersection somehow, some way.
Understood.
Right, that's one of the things that Mr. McCarron kind of suggested to us as we consider some of these, again, we call them conditions, agreements, is that, how specific do we want to be? So specific as impossible, or do we want to open it up a little bit so there is just a little bit of leeway? Those are the kind of things we have to decide. So I guess to tag on to what Michelle said and Ryan said earlier, and then I guess we have a lot of information before us, and we've got to take a look at all this and decide, what do we really feel strongly about? And I guess put that down. And then you go from there, because some of us may be concerned that, hey, we want this, this, and this. Some may say, we'll let planning and zoning take care of this. Some might say, no, I don't want to rely on planning and zoning to take care of this. It might be a different group. So I think we need to all look at that and, like Ryan said, come up with our ideas and start from there.
So I'd almost propose as a next step, anyone can weigh in here, and then I would like Mr. McCarron to weigh in, make sure that, again, I'm not saying anything that's out of form or is, just saying the wrong thing that somebody's going to rely on. My idea on the next step is if Mr. Hackett could send over those, here's a concept under, we don't do anything and it's town and county. And then here's a concept with 40, with it coming into the town. Then get that out to our group. Then this group then puts together, let's say, a wish list of things that we could get to the table on if we decide to go that way, or everyone just says, no, look, I mean, if 4 of you guys say, I prefer the option with it in the county, then that's the way it is. But looking at those two options side by side, thinking about the considerations going into the future, is there a wish list that we can come back to the table, hopefully an actual table, not this Zoom table, and have a discussion with the Woodhaven group and their representatives. That's kind of my idea on the next step. Is that okay to say, Tom, at this point?
Yeah, that's perfectly acceptable. I think that's a very sensible way of moving forward. Now, obviously, for any formal vote, if a decision were made to not proceed with the annexation, you would need to notice that, have it in a public meeting, and have it, formally voted on. So, there's nothing wrong with, in a workshop, for instance, getting a consensus, I guess, but, a formal vote on the annexation's got to be done with proper notice in a formal meeting with a formal motion or vote and vote. That's the only word of caution I would say.
Okay. I think that makes sense. And then my second piece, unless somebody objects to that process, would be to confirm with the Woodhaven folks that they're comfortable in that scenario. And I know that we have some obligation to get them answers, but are they comfortable with that pace and with that process and trying to reach a decision, so that I don't want you guys to walk away from this and feel like, well, we're brushing you guys off and not giving this the proper due diligence.
I'd love to defer to Marty. Can you weigh in, Marty?
Yeah. Am I on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. No, I think we've all along said we'd like to reach a point where we can sit down across the table and negotiate with someone, whomever the council appoints to do that. But I'll be frank with you. I think it's sort of what Ryan said a minute ago too. I don't want to do that on Zoom. I want to be actually across the table, and we can do that with proper distance and mask. But if that's the intent, let's try to keep moving and get to that point.
May I ask a question? Are we, and maybe I misunderstood, I just want to make sure I understand properly. So is there a time that just the council can get together, mayor and council or council, and discuss and talk amongst ourselves? And so we all understand and are on the same page before we meet with Mr. Hackett and Mr. Hill and everybody else?
No. One that probably gets down to an open meetings question. So I'll defer to Tom as our counsel here. I think that if it has to do with a legal issue or a negotiation, I think it would meet the requirement of the open meetings. If it's just, we're just discussing public business, then generally that's just open. And
I just feel like we need some time to talk about this amongst ourselves. It seems like every time we're talking about it, we're either in a town meeting or we have I think we all would like to speak to each other and kind of, bounce some ideas off. And it's very hard to do on Zoom and, that type of thing.
we can have a meeting, but I can't redefine the open meetings laws. So
Yeah.
we work pretty hard to try to make sure that we don't break those.
Yeah, so if a quorum of the council is present, with a few exceptions, then it has to be an open session. The two exceptions that, might at all apply, the first one would be to take legal advice, but that is a very narrow exception. It's literally me speaking to you about legal advice, and that's it. So, I could envision something along those lines where I might tell you legally what I think could go into an agreement, what the language should be, or things like that, or what the law is. The other, just because the mayor brought it up, yes, to protect a negotiating position in the purchase of property, real property, there's an exception to the Open Meetings Act so that a town can, not give away its bottom line. But that's not applicable here. The town's not acquiring property. So the other thing I have seen before is the council will designate less than quorum to work on this and to, be able to more focus without being in an open meeting, so to speak, as to what its negotiating position will be. That way you avoid the Open Meetings Act because you don't have a quorum of a public body.
So, Tom, thank you for that. This is just my opinion. I think we should be very careful about appearing to try to avoid the open meetings rule. Right? This is a high-profile thing. It's along the highway. People are going to have opinions. My advice to everybody is, it's okay to have your opinion. It's okay to advocate for that. It's okay to speak up. I don't think that we should huddle into a corner because we don't want to speak up for whatever reason. I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but the appearance of the council or some of the council wanting to keep to go to the cigar filled room, proverbially, and make a decision is not a good look, I think. So I think let's just have the discussion. Whatever you want to say, you say, and whatever it is. I think that's my advice. Of course, you guys are all free to act under your own free will.
Tom, do you have to have other people on the Zoom meeting if it's a public meeting that can be viewed? Do they have to be invited to it?
Well, they have to have some means to hear the meeting in real time, and but in a workshop, it is not required that people from outside the council actually comment or participate
Right. Okay.
actively.
I know in the meetings I've been with the county, they make us turn our camera off. They don't even want to look at us until it's our turn or they ask us a question.
Yeah, that's an option, right? Is it you have a meeting, but I think Tom's right. If it's public, it's public, and we don't necessarily have to take comments or include others in the conversation. In some cases, I think it's prudent, like in this, right? We're trying to have a conversation, But if you'd rather have a conversation just amongst council, that's also fine. But we can't. I don't think we should just try to find a loophole to pull it offline, so to speak.
Michelle, those county meetings, they don't allow you to have your camera on because there's so many participants that it just blows the system.
Well, I followed the rules.
It wasn't my, just so you know, everyone, it wasn't my intention to try to sneak something by. I was just asking if we have the option to speak to each other and bounce some ideas off of each other before, putting everybody on here and taking hours bouncing things back and forth in front of everybody. That was my question.
Makes good sense. It's just difficult.
Right. I understand.
Melinda, I was trying to be careful on how I said it. I started getting into it. I didn't want to sound like accusatory. I think, and by the way, I know all of you personally at this point. Even if we had a conversation that wasn't online, it would be fine. I'd be more concerned about the appearance of it, because just how people talk and how it be reported, and whatever you guys decide. This is one of those things where it's going to be an unpopular decision, one way or another, right? So somebody's going to be upset, and somebody's going to think we're idiots, and we're not doing what they want us to do. So it's in my mind, it doesn't make sense to give it extra, like, oh, we went into some sort of secret meeting. But understood.
All right, so did I hear, as far as action items, that Mr. Hackett's going to go off and prepare 2 concept plans for us, and then we as council will going to go off and write down a couple things we feel strongly about that we want to see in an agreement and not rely on planning and zoning, should we decide to go that way? Is that the 2 actions?
I think so, unless anyone disagrees. And I'm going to say this just for the record. I think it's fine for us to all kind of get our wish list together. People that I talk to or people contact me are like, well, if we're going to do this, you should make them. There's always like a them, right? You should make them build a bypass, right? Well, you could say whatever you want, but I don't. It's probably not reasonable to ask one developer to spend $100 million on a bypass that there's not a permit for or anything like that. So I think let's come up with that wish list, and then we can work. If it goes down that road, we can work just to prioritize, see what's reasonable, see what we can get in there. So
right, it could be one master list with no names associated with it. There's nothing.
Yeah, I mean, it's just hey, here's the things that we'd like to see included, and Mr. Hill said, well, then we can get to a table and have a better conversation. So that's all I had tonight. I'm sorry again for being late, making you guys wait. Go ahead, Steve.
Mr. Mayor, Marty Hackett, one thing, could you do me a favor? Could you put the Hale house on, the Smith house on, just as a block, the pond, and the potential well site? Now, you can get that location from Zach Neal at the county. Okay. And he can give you. So if you could do those 4 items for me, I would appreciate that. So
we will take care of it. I plan on superimposing the layout on an aerial photograph.
Yeah. I knew you had the technology. I knew you had it.
Of course. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but wait till you see his drawings will be with crayons.
I've known Hackett a long time. It'll probably be in crayon, no doubt about it.
Anybody else have anything tonight? All right, so Marty Hackett, I guess you'll send that into Michelle and or Steve.
Yes, sir.
And then the council and the rest of us will look to get that from them, and then we'll continue the conversation.
That's correct.
Anybody else have anything? Oh, it's 8:30. If nobody else has anything, we can probably jump off. No objections. I know it's just a work session, so we don't even need a motion or anything.
I get some time back.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good evening.
See you guys.
Right.
Good night.